We know. Rick Ross, thank you.
Well, Scott, thank you for the invite. It's an honor to be back here at Career Transition. And you might say, well, things have changed a lot in the last years. And they have in some ways. In other ways, they have not. They're still the same. So we'll talk about those. And I just want to say something about VUMC. And there's a men's group that meets here on Thursdays. And you think, well, how's that going to help me? And you just never know. I know I took a friend of mine to one of the men's groups here. And at the table, another friend joined me. He's a very senior VP at a healthcare company. His name's Bob Fink. And Bob talked to this guy just randomly. They happened to sit next to each other, and he wound up getting a job. I mean, you just never know. And out of this group, Career Transition, as I told Scott earlier, I said, I've seen amazing things happen because of this group, including miracles. And Scott knows that's true. And we've seen some amazing things happen. So it's great to be back to chat today. The reason I didn't lead Career Transition anymore after I don't know how many years is I had accidentally got hired by Vanderbilt University Medical Center. Well, I kind of did it intentionally, but I just knew that I didn't have the time or the bandwidth to lead it anymore because people wanted to meet with me and everyone wanted to work at Vanderbilt. So I took a sabbatical. So I'm still on sabbatical. I think it's been 15 years though. So it's been a while. I turned it over to Dan Ryan. I don't know what he ever said about me.
Good stuff.
But the Stevens ministers are a great resource too. And I had a guy named Mike Davis. Is Mike Davis?
Mike still is.
He used to help me at Career Transition and just an incredible guy. And tell him that you know Rick Ross and see what he said. Anyway, he helped me set up a men's Bible study group that has been going on for 20 years. And it was an accidental thing I said to him, and I got the call the next day about, can you lead this? And it's like, yeah. But anyway, fun stuff. As far as what we're going to talk about tonight, first I want to tell you a little bit about my career. I don't want to make this about me, but I've been a recruiter kind of as a second career because I started out in technology with IBM and couple other technology companies, but found out that there was a shift away from selling big computers to selling project-based work and all that. And I thought, that's pretty good. So I decided to pursue that part of my work. And that was probably back in, well, a pretty long time ago in my long career. And so I got a lot of experience recruiting. I worked for some large staffing firms, ultimately started a company called Nashville Global Partners, which was an IT staffing firm, and recruited a partner to work with me. And we learned how to start a business, run a business, and make money on our own, which to me is the American dream. And after a while, I think we had some downturns in the economy, and I sold my interest in it and had a job all ready to go. It was a great job, except for one thing. I worked there for about a week and was told that somebody was supposed to phone interview one of my candidates from headquarters, and he didn't. I called him. I said, why didn't you call me? He goes, oh, we just declared bankruptcy. And then I was like, what? So I was without a job and without a hope. And I had great support from my wife. It was just one of those things. They never paid me either, by the way. Although I did get a Mac in the deal. So anyway, what I learned was to take all the things that I've talked about at this group for a long time. We're going to go over all those today. But it really came down to probably one thing more than any other thing, and that's working our network. We'll go into some detail on that. In fact, here's some of the things we're going to talk about. In a very crowded job seeker universe, where are the jobs? Where are they? And why is it that I sent out 200 resumes and I haven't gotten a response? So let's go to the next slide. And I can tell you why, because that's what everybody else is doing. I mean, how many stories have you seen of people that I sent out 200 resumes and I haven't heard a thing back? Well, if all these guys or all these people are sending resumes that way, can you imagine what a recruiter's job is like when he comes in the morning and he finds out he has 500 applicants for this job? He's not overjoyed because there's no way you can look at 500 resumes. So even years ago, before there was AI, I would open the resume, glance at it, and I would do what's called a control F, which is a control find. And it'll find certain keywords. Sorry, that's how it works. And if they didn't have those keywords, at least maybe it might have been 5 or 6 of them, I would put it in the, we'll contact you at a later date and move on. But can you imagine what it's like to have that many resumes show up? What are the odds? So we're going to find ways to beat the odds, because if everybody's doing that, it's failing, there has to be another strategy. So we'll talk about that. Why organizations are not hiring, talk about that. There's some obvious things. Industries that are growing and those that are not. And why sending 200 applications does not move the needle. In fact, you feel like you're making progress. I'm probably stepping out of the camera. I don't know if it is. Creating your CV with some help from AI. We'll talk about that, but we'll come back to that in a second, Scott, as well. And identifying your expert level, or at least skills that you have. I'm going to ask you a challenging question when we get to that part, and a lot of people can't answer. Creating your top 50 list of places you'd like to work. How do you do that? Where do you find these? How many can you name off the top of your head? And breaking down the HR barriers, that would have been me. I know how to do it. And using social media to work your connections. Sound good? All right. And by the way, I welcome interruptions, questions, and things of that nature. Let's go to the next page. All right. Well, why are there no jobs? Well, number one, I hadn't thought of this when I did some research because I wasn't sure. People aren't leaving jobs. I mean, if I was still working at Vanderbilt, I'd probably consider working a couple more years, you know. But last time I was here, I talked about job satisfaction, and there were like 8 factors, you know, things like chance for promotion, you know, the work itself, a lot of these really nice factors that make us happy in a job. And you usually have to have about 4 or 5 of these to keep you there. But there's one critical one that has become way more important because of the job situation we're in right now. And that's job security. If you're in a job, even if you're not particularly happy with it, but you've become what I call bulletproof in the job, they're not going to fire you, meaning you've picked up a skill that nobody else has. It's a way to be bulletproof in your job. You're not going to go looking because you've heard the stories. I mean, we're aware that there's fewer jobs now. Unemployment's gone up. Large organizations are downsizing. So some are just retiring. Not at all. They're just holding off on it. So it's much better to be seen as better to be employed than take the risk. And I understand that. And then the other one is kind of on the little box there. And I apologize, I have to look at my slides, with pervasive layoffs and trickle down. You know, there's a lot of big companies that have announced layoffs. Meta, Amazon has done that. UPS, Microsoft had some big layoffs. GM's had a lot. Nissan's had a lot. So those are the big ones. But you got to ask yourself, well, why are they doing that? Well, the easy answer is AI, right? Oh yeah, it's just AI, not a problem. But there's another reason too, and that's that corporations are seeking to be more profitable. So they're looking at different skills that may not be as critical, and they're selecting these people. So a lot of jobs have gone away. But there's a trickle-down effect of that. You know, it's like organizations, smaller organizations see that and go, you know, well, 1 or 2 things they can do. They can say, we can pick up some good employees, or we can also kind of downsize, blame AI, and increase our profitability. That's a Rick Ross theory. I don't know if that's true, but don't write it down. That's what's happening though. And, you know, just financial pressure. In fact, there's a report we're going to look at in a little bit that quotes that exact thing. It's not just AI. It's the financial pressure to perform. Now let's check the next slide this time. By the way, this slide show you're seeing here was something done in collaboration with Scott. I want to thank him in front of everybody because I use a Mac, okay? And they just work better for me, you know, but I don't have PowerPoint. So I created my presentation in something called Pages, and I sent it to Scott. And last time I did this, he did a beautiful job. But this time he couldn't even open it. But nonetheless, a couple of days later, he sent this to me, and it was gorgeous. And I thanked him for that. And he said, well, I couldn't open it, so I went to originally ChatGPT, Claude, which is another AI product. And somehow doing that, along with whatever else he did, it created this. Now, the reason I say that to you is not only to really cite Scott for his hard work, and he said it was nothing, but it's nothing if you don't know how to do it, it's something. But Scott's going to talk in a couple of weeks and talk about using these tools and the same sort of procedure to create your best resume. Now, I was not going to say that because I was thinking, well, hey, so maybe Scott should be talking today and we could have held you off for a couple of weeks. But anyway, it'll happen either way, and we'll get Scott out there. Well, let's see. This is kind of a summary that 45,000 job cuts in June. Well, let me tell you the good news. That's down from May. There weren't as many. So maybe we're going in the right direction. But between January and June, there have been a lot of job cuts. But you look at the whole population of workers. How many people do you think are actually employed? You got 300 million people here. So it's really a small percentage, and it really hasn't moved the unemployment number that much. And, it's up from Q1, but there's a chart in this report. It's called Chandler, Christmas, and Gray. It's a report that comes out every month on the job market. And we can send you a link for that, or I can post it so you can take a look at that. But the point is that as bad as it seems now, it's been way worse in previous years. The COVID years, 2006, 2009, there were even worse numbers. So while it seems like a pretty bad market right now, it's not as bad as it's been. So we will get through it. It'll improve. Next slide. And thank you, Scott, for driving. This is great. All right, same thing here. These are the industries that are growing and those that are cutting. Now, I found something interesting in the industries that are cutting, because one of them was technology. And then later on in the report, it was listed as one of the growing ones. So I wasn't sure how that could be true until I thought about people that I work with at Vanderbilt, because I was actually embedded in the IT group as a recruiter. So I got to see a lot of people that I thought were kind of mailing it in. Their skills, no offense to them, weren't as sharp, maybe as relevant. They may have been doing what we call maintenance work on the computer, the programs. And those people may have been targeted, which eliminated a lot of people. But the reason it's still growing at the same time, who can guess at that? There's new skills that have emerged. It isn't just AI, it's who can utilize it, who can engage it within our technology today and some of the other new tools that have come out. So it's just been a shift in technology. So it's shrinking and growing at the same time. It's the best explanation I could give. It took me a while to figure that out. Well, how's that possible? Hiring, interestingly enough, entertainment, leisure, I don't know. I guess is that working in a restaurant, working in a comedy club? I'm not sure. Aerospace, defense, utilities. One of the things that I think might also be growing and maybe not cutting, I'm not sure, specific to Tennessee. I don't think Tennessee state government is slowing down. I think they still have jobs. Education still has jobs. In fact, my wife said, hey, tell them to become a substitute teacher. There's always jobs there. And she was a retired teacher herself. So, these reports, though, are national. And as a state, I think we're doing pretty good yet. We have a lot of companies relocating here. Oracle announced a big hiring plan here. Even though Amazon downsized, I noticed they still have jobs posted. And so we're in a little bit better shape, I think, than some of the other states. Like Michigan was down on manufacturing, and other states were not doing as well as us. So it's very positive. And again, we'll send you the link to this report. And Next slide. I think, this was the report. It's Challenger Gray Christmas. It's a very large executive staffing firm that produces these monthly reports. And I do have the link, send it to Scott and we can post it. So you can take a look at the report. But I'm going to tell you, it's not like, wow, this is great news, because a lot of industries are cutting. But why is it important to know which ones are cutting and which ones are growing? I guess if these industries are cutting, I'm not going to delude myself into thinking they're going to need me. So I want to focus on the ones that are growing. Okay, very simple. Not hard to figure that one out. Anyway, I was going to embed the report here, and unfortunately, because of my Mac, it didn't work out. But I have a page after this. If you can go to that, Scott. I think it's after this. Okay, well, we'll get to that in a minute. There's a lot out of phase. It's difficult to do a presentation and edit it when you don't have the tools to do it. So it's kind of fun. I was terrified to mess with it. It would disappear or something like that. You hear this all the time. I'll just, get on LinkedIn and I'll just, it's so easy. You can apply. Let me tell you something about LinkedIn that is a little challenging for you. When you apply to a LinkedIn job, a lot of times it does not go to the corporate resume database. You're not officially applied there. Now, sometimes you are, but a lot of times it's just a resume that goes to the recruiter. So you really haven't gotten through HR. In fact, you went right to HR, thinking they'll see my resume, it'll be great. So while I think LinkedIn is a great source of seeing who's hiring, I'll probably talk about another point too. I think it's important for us to find these corporations or companies that we would like to work at and go straight to their website and see what jobs they have posted. Because I will tell you, LinkedIn Recruiter is extremely expensive, and a lot of companies don't want to spend the money. If you want to be posting jobs, you got to have Recruiter. Indeed is the same thing. So a lot of times they just post it on their website and it never makes it to LinkedIn or any of these other sites. So we got to come up with a strategy to get around it. That's one step to do it. There you go. Never really. Well, anyway, if you build a target list and you say you create 50 companies for your target list, you go, I can't think of more than 10. Well, there's some ways to do that. We'll talk about that as well. There's things like the Nashville Healthcare Council. There are manufacturing jobs and manufacturers listed in a manufacturing association here that meets, and there's a lot of companies that are part of this. If you go to the Nashville Healthcare Council, there are hundreds of companies listed with their names right there, and in some cases, contact info. If you want to spend time in healthcare, you don't have to be an RN to be in healthcare. I was far from an RN, and I spent 11 years at the Vanderbilt University Medical Center. There's a whole lot of jobs there and a whole lot of contacts and places you can start building from. Chamber has lists of companies too. So you got to look at some of these and go, yeah, I always kind of wanted to work for HCA. But think about companies that you admire or you've heard about, or maybe you're finding out from LinkedIn that they're hiring and you want to kind of bypass the LinkedIn thing and go direct. There's an advantage to going direct, but here's where you can use LinkedIn. Let's say I apply to a fairly major healthcare company and I go through their website though, not LinkedIn. Then I go back to LinkedIn and I find out, who do I know here? Maybe I don't know anybody, but maybe the vice president of HR is listed there. Am I bold enough to send an email to that person and say I recently applied for a job? And I find he lists some incredible qualifications. Now, as from a recruiter standpoint, that always kind of annoyed me because I get these emails from the VP of HR. Have you seen this guy? And it's like, yeah, he looks great. I want you to call him. It happens a lot. And these are people that are utilizing resources like LinkedIn and applying directly. And I think it's important to do both. Because remember, we don't want to be one of those 200 that just blindly applied to a job description that was created by that's why. A job description created by AI and sending your resume that was enhanced by AI. So we're going around that and trying to beat the algorithm is what we're trying to do. All right. Oh, by the way, I think it's important, and it's an extra step, to create a spreadsheet of where you've applied and what the job was and what your action was. Because the last thing you want, well, maybe not the last thing, but something you don't want is to get a call from an organization and they say that they got a resume from you and you're drawing a blank. Oh, yeah. You have to keep track and just take a look at it occasionally, see where you've gone. And, maybe check in with them, see what's going on. But it's happened before where people, I've called them, and they're like, Vanderbilt, you work for Vanderbilt? It's like, yeah, I'm actually calling you for a job. It's kind of funny, but you don't want that call to go bad if they do contact you. And hopefully you get an email too, so that you can kind of follow up with them. All right, let's go to the next pervasive approach and proven failure to do it. Anyway, here's how we do the targeted list. I couldn't wait to talk about it apparently, but track everything, find hidden postings. Oh, number 4, that's one of my favorites. What if you see a job posted by a recruiting firm? You think, that looks pretty good. You can apply through the recruiter. I don't mean to put recruiters out of business. These are staffing firms, okay? And maybe if you're really good, they have an inside track to get you there. But I want to know who the company is they're representing. And I have found a trick that works about 90% of the time. Hopefully they haven't heard me speak because I'll figure out how to fix this. But when you look at their posting, there'll be something about the firm and something else. But embedded in there, you'll see the heart of the job description, what it really is. Now I have some bulleted things. You can copy paragraphs from that and put it in Google. Not just a word, but you can put that whole mess in Google and it may direct you. 90% of the time, it'll find the job description from the company. And I don't know if it still works. I haven't done it for a while, but 90% of the time, you'll find out who it is. Maybe it's a company that you've worked for in the past. That could be good. You might know some people there. You might have a former manager who'd be delighted to have. It's just, you never know. So it's worth trying though, but give it a try just for fun. See if you can make that work. All right, local news. Well, career fairs come up quite a bit on local news. I know that Belmont has a big one every year. Lipscomb has one coming up. My wife sent me one about I'll get it here in my notes later. I'm going to get through this presentation. It's a technology fair somewhere. But there's always career fairs. And you go, well, I really don't want to. Well, it's talking to a human being. Sometimes it's a recruiter. Sometimes it's the hiring manager with the recruiter. We did what seems to be innumerable career fairs at Vanderbilt. And we used to kind of have a lot of fun with it because we give stuff away. We have candy and stuff and a chance to talk to a lot of people, meet all the vendors around us too, which was kind of fun. And we used to have a contest of who had the best giveaways, but that's another story. You can check Twitter feeds, things like that. You'll find all kinds of information. And I also mentioned reconnecting. Companies don't rely on references a lot today, but what a good idea to call those who maybe could be a reference if you need it, and to let them know you're looking for a job. They might know somebody. Basically, that's how I found my job at Vanderbilt, but we'll come back to that. Going back to former employers, people at your manager, your coworkers, and let them know you're in free agency right now. Looking to be picked up on waivers if you're a football fan, but you are a free agent and you maybe have time to do this. But reconnecting and expanding that network is kind of what collaboration is all about. Scott and I proved that collaboration can produce some incredible results. And just keep that in mind. You've got to be bold. You got to do things that might make you uncomfortable. Okay. And I still get calls today from people that either worked for me or worked with me, and I've given advice and, check my contacts. And we always want to help people. It's fun to help people. Most people will not turn you down. All right. There was Nashville Healthcare Council, Nashville Chamber, Glassdoor as well. Another thing you could do is just look at Indeed postings, see what companies are hiring, even if it isn't one you want. Just get an idea of companies that are hiring, because that's a good sign. Let's go to the next slide. Thank you, Scott. All right. Oh, why do organizations hire? I always thought it was because you had a smiling face and you were a nice person. That may be part of the problem. Or one of these things is another contradiction. It's the second one, increased profitability. Wait a minute, I thought you said they're downsizing because of that. Well, I guess that could be true. But it's related to the first point that typically organizations hire to increase revenue. It could be an increase in the sales staff. It could be an increase or a new project that's going to generate revenue for them. It could be any number of things, but that's typically why they hire. And if you have increased revenue, you're hoping for increased profitability too. So those are two reasons that they hire. Major project, expansion, a reorganization, relationships, and mergers and acquisitions. So you can always find companies that are going through acquisitions, and maybe they'll have new opportunities. Just got to keep your proverbial ear to the ground and be watching news. And Nashville Business Journal is really good. Nashville City Paper has a lot of things. You don't have to subscribe to the Business Journal to see who's getting hired. They've got articles a lot of times that you can see. You get the first page, and that's as far as you get. But it's a pretty good source. And a lot of times they'll announce new major hires, and you can reach out to that person on LinkedIn and say, yeah, I see you just recently took a job. I'd like to connect with you and see if we can collaborate at some point. You never know. Next page. All right. What are your expert level skills? Let me ask, this is the tough question. You don't have to answer. I want you to think about it. You ready? What are you good enough at that you can send an invoice to a company? Can you think of anything that you're good enough at that, assuming you're a consultant, that you can send an invoice to them for your business services? For me, it would have been easy. Well, I could recruit, and I actually worked as a contract recruiter. I've had people answer, well, I don't know if it's out of my head, but I'm really good at hanging drywall. Drywall? Okay. But if you can't answer that question, I want you to go home and really think about that, because the job you either have today or had a few weeks or months ago, you basically were sending an invoice. Did you ever do a timesheet? That was your invoice, okay? Every time they sent you a paycheck, it may have been you didn't see an invoice, but it's fundamentally they kept you there because you were good enough at something that you either helped revenue, helped profitability, or helped on projects or things like that. What was that skill that you had? And was there a skill missing that caused you to lose your job? Just examine that self in your own time. Do a little deep thinking on that. But it's a good place to start. What am I good enough at? What other skills do I have, though, to go with that? Do I have people skills? Can I lead? Do I have management skills? Do I have specific technology skills? By the way, all these things you have to know before you get to Scott telling you how to create a resume in AI. Because it isn't going to read your mind. It needs to know those things. What are you good at? What are you proficient at? What certifications do you have? And start thinking of those things, because without knowing that, you're applying blindly to jobs that may not be a good match for you. All right, here's other things you could be good at. And a couple kind of surprised me as I was thinking about this. Solution selling. I mean, if you can sell things, there's always jobs for salespeople, but you have to be good at selling internally too, to organizations. Even when you're employed, you kind of sell yourself, right? You engage your managers. You sort of let them know what you're doing and how good you are. Skilled trades. Do you have a skilled trade that you're good at? Trades are hiring, believe it or not. And everybody frowns at that. It's like, oh, do that, be a plumber. There's other skilled trades too that are less messy than plumber. Event organizing and planning. Have you done that? Are you good at that? These are just some examples of skills that you might have and have forgotten. Kind of look back at what you've accomplished and you go, I forgot about that. Maybe you're good at some of the organizational systems. Workday is a big one. PeopleSoft, some of these big systems that run our organizations. Do you have skills within that? Can you generate reports from Workday? Can you generate, by the way, generating reports is huge in every organization. I think half of my hires at Vanderbilt were people related to business intelligence, data sciences, or report generation, because especially in healthcare, if you can't summarize it and put it in a report, it didn't happen. And there's so many things. Research needs reporting. There's got to be some ways to integrate AI with reporting. And that'd be something I'd investigate too if I was looking for a job and wanted to do that kind of thing. AI integration. If the jobs are being lost to AI, surely there has to be something that functions to utilize AI to replace those. It's a blanket statement to say AI replaced it, but it doesn't just show up and do the work. I mentioned social media too. If you're really good at social media, organizations need that too. I'm going to cite a movie I shouldn't. Is Emily in Paris? Anybody ever see that? She was amazing with social media. This was, maybe wasn't the best example. It's a funny movie. Unfortunately, she did a lot of things that she shouldn't have done. But she was so good at utilizing social media to grow businesses and do things. It was incredible. I don't recommend you watch it if you are a member here at VUMC. Any question is fine.
When you mentioned social media, what about affiliate marketing? Is that in the same category?
I would think so. Yeah, define what you mean by that. So maybe our definition is affiliate marketing.
My understanding of affiliate marketing is it's a way to go online and profit off of content that you're posting on your feed. And that feed can be placed on numerous places, such as YouTube or school or others. And a lot of people are selling the packages to have people come on board with them. I don't know who is successful at it. Some people are making a lot of money off of it. And it's kind of one of those black holes, if you will, that you can get into. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. It just depends upon the person and the matching up of the skill to do it.
A lot of Emily in Paris was like that. And YouTube pays for every view. And I was watching a guy the other day who's he's a tow truck driver, but for some reason I watch it. And I know he recently went through a divorce and he started his own little towing company. And I know that it helps him for me to watch it. And the other day he said, I decided to keep pursuing my own business because the YouTube revenue is keeping me afloat. And I thought, well, that's interesting. And I realized that. And you're right. There's other sources besides YouTube. But if you're expert at that, there's going to be some places for you within marketing. I think it's a real exciting chapter of marketing, But anyway, that movie was kind of fun. Again, don't watch it with the grandkids. Regulatory compliance is an increasing area too. There's just so many different things that companies are hiring for. Just go into Indeed someday, just scroll through the job listings without anything specific and see what, in general, what are the most pervasive things that you see they're hiring for. Used to be technology, Java developers and all that. And again, that's changing too. But just kind of take a look at that and maybe it'll lead you to some thoughts about, can I cross over? Do I have enough skills? can I get enough keywords in my resume to get looked at? All right, let's go to the next page. All right. It's so important to really spend the time to develop your CV. And I think my statement says, I have to read it, show proof, not promises. So how do you do that in a resume? If you led a project that saved the organization $5 million, you better get specific about what you did and how you did it and how you met timelines and what the project was. Be specific, because saying that I led a big project is great, but you've got to get some of the keywords in there too that might be important to be picked up by some guy that does keyword searches. Let's assume it's a project manager job. And if you have been a project manager involved in project management, there's a lot of things that you measure projects by. Burn rate, timelines, gateways, all kinds of things that you can show and prove. And I've often wondered if I would put things in my resume to somehow make it real, and nobody reads cover letters, unfortunately, so you can't do it there. But maybe a cover sheet on your resume before you even get to the main part that says, proven leader in project management with skills. And then page 2 is a resume. I don't know if that'll work. I've been meaning to try that. It's sort of like you get that first page and you say, okay, well, that sounds good. What do you got? But you really need to substantiate it and expand on it. Otherwise, it's just another project manager. By the way, my keyword search for project managers was PMP or PMI, because that's Project Management Professional or Project Management Institute, and that was a cert. And that's typically where I started. And a little trick there is if, say, suppose you're a project manager, but you don't have your PMP and don't want to lie about it, here's the secret on that one. Put in PMP in progress, accepted to be awarded 2027. So at least it got the attention. Not a lie, necessarily, but you want to make sure that if there's a certification required and you see that and you're pursuing it, or you just decided to pursue it, you can kind of slide that in your resume. But you better be pursuing it too at the same time, otherwise you'll get caught. Let's see. Keywords, certifications, requirements. I mean, if you look at a job, you go, I could do that. I mean, I don't have some of that, but I can do it. You're probably not going to get the call. So pay special attention, and pay special attention to making sure that your resume matches it. I suppose there's ways in AI to do that too. But I don't want my resume to be another AI resume like the other 1,000 in front of me. I want it to be something specific to me and specific to my skills without stretching it. Oh, by the way, Resume Now is a tool. I don't know if you've used that, Scott. It's something I discovered, or what are the best tools for creating resumes. ChatGPT and Resume Now came up. So what little I know about it, there it is. But also, you got to use it, and you have to look at word choice and time frames. Because I'd read or seen something that says, as good as AI is, it could mix up timelines and maybe put words in there that you didn't expect. So make sure you edit that out so that you know what it's saying, and make sure the timelines are correct. Because if you submit a resume with dates and things, and there's a background check and it doesn't match your resume, you might get rejected. And trust me, I've battled that so many times at Vanderbilt that somebody got dismissed from an offer in the background check because of some minor thing. Things like, and this was the worst one, a guy applied for a job and he said he had an associate's degree. That's a 2-year degree from a junior college. Well, he'd spent 2 years at a junior college, but he didn't get the associate's degree. This was horrible because he was living in Memphis. This is like on a Friday or a Thursday. He was supposed to start Monday. So I have to call this guy and say, well, there's been a little hiccup in your background check and you can't start Monday. And this guy's probably told his family, hey, we're moving to Nashville, everything is great. And I would battle the people in the background check area, and I generally won. But this one was going to be tough. So I figured a workaround out. And I was going to find somebody to do that. But the workaround was I told them that I have an idea, and I had a staffing firm that we worked with real closely. And I called them and said, I need a favor. Can you put this guy, bring him in as a contractor? Because the hiring manager was furious with me. We need this guy. So he started Monday working for a contracting firm. And the contracting firm said, why did he flunk the background check? And I told them, they're like, and it wasn't like drugs or anything like that. So he worked for the staffing firm for about 6 weeks. He reapplied, he fixed it all, and he's probably still working there today. It's one of my proudest moments at Vanderbilt that I beat the system like that. But anyway, hope you don't know this guy. There's the concept of number 6 has the word value. Value is hard to define, isn't it? What's your value? What do you bring? And it goes back to the job description. Do you bring value? Do you match up to that? Are there other things that you bring value with? Leadership skills, some of the other things we talked about, social media skills, project skills, organizational skills. Those are all things that bring value but are hard to define. And I mentioned reference lists. Nothing like calling some people and saying, hey, do you remember me? I used to work for you. I've only had one person contact me that I didn't remember. And I'm like, who is this guy? It took me a day to remember who he was. He only worked for me for a month, so I wasn't a very good reference. When I say work your network, though, I'm going to give you an example that's personal to me, but also got me the best job, second best job I ever had. And it was at Vanderbilt. Now, remember, I became unemployed out of the blue, okay? I was sitting home, cooking up my resume and doing things. And I think I had just gotten back from an interview with a company that was on the east side of Nashville. And I think on my way to the parking lot, they were typing out the rejection. So I got home and got rejected already. Thankfully, I have a very good support group with my family. My wife said, oh, you don't want to go. That's a tough commute anyway. You want to work there. So I was back to ground zero. And one of my network friends, this guy named Scott Fernandez. Scott's a very good recruiter. I had hired him at my company, Nashville Global Partners. He was my second hire. And he wasn't a tremendous recruiter, but boy, he could learn, and he turned out to be great. But during a downturn that we had, I want to say 2006, 2009, I had to terminate Scott, and we downsized a little bit. And I remained friends with Scott. And he knew I was looking for a job, and out of the blue, he called me and he said he knew that Vanderbilt was one of our biggest clients in Nashville. We did a lot of placements there, okay? Full-time placements, we get 25% of the first year's salary. It was a pretty good deal. Well, when I sold my business, I didn't have a non-compete, which was good. But Scott told me that one of his friends, is a personal friend of the brand new vice president of recruiting. And he said, I'm going to hook you guys up. And he did. I didn't know this guy at all. But he got me the interview with her. And I could have never gotten an interview there. And because what I had told this new friend and what I would do there is create an internal staffing firm for them that would save them millions. So anyway, I got the interview, and she was brand new. I told her that I had made multiple placements at Vanderbilt. I knew the organization, but you don't have a decent IT staffing firm in this multi-billion-dollar organization, and I will build it for you, and we'll start eliminating these firms that are charging you 25 to 30% of the first year's salary. And she thought it was a pretty good idea. This job didn't exist, by the way. And she said, well, I'll tell you what, I'm going to set up an interview with the IT people. And I knew most of them, so this was a pretty cool interview. And it's like 3 or 4 guys, they didn't really ask me any tough questions. And at the end of the interview, they said, any questions for us? And I said, yeah, aren't you asking me some tough technical questions? And this one guy said, well, give me an example. And I said, well, I gave him 2 examples. He goes, I would ask that, but I don't know the answer myself. I was like, great. So anyway, from there, I went back to the HR, the recruiting vice president. And she said, I already got the report on you. And she said, I'm going to post a job in the next 3 hours, and you need to apply before the close of business. And I did. And the reason she did that is the job didn't exist. She had to quickly get it approved, and she wanted me to apply and then shut it down. And I got the job, and I was there 11 years. Not because I knew somebody who knew somebody. Okay, I mean, work that network. And we don't want to tell people, I'm out of a job. Well, no, I'm a free agent, and I'm looking for a new opportunity. Sounds pretty good then. Well, I got bagged the other day, and they don't like me anymore. That is a true story, though, and I'm going to tell you part 2 of that story is about 2 years later, and I was tracking placements that I made that I thought would have normally go to recruiting firms. It's 2 or 3 years later, they announced at a big HR meeting that I had saved them like $4 million, and I could not believe that they announced that, and I was wondering where the commission check was. But
10%, yeah.
And my former company was not happy with me. And I said, well, you didn't give me a non-compete. I had to get a job. I don't know. That job didn't even exist. Okay. Now, am I lucky? Yes. Do I make my own luck? I try. And I went in there as what would be called a disruptor, because she gave me some ground rules. She said, I want you to sit with all the other recruiters. I want them to hear what you do and how you do it. And it worked. They started hearing me do crazy things, like they were switching resume systems when I got there. And they were going to close off the old one and move to the new one. It was really perfect timing because I actually was getting the new system. But before they closed off the old one, I went in on the weekend and I started looking for skills that I knew I would need, like Java skills. And I mined them out of that old system. And I got all these old resumes of people that had never been contacted. And I wound up calling these people. And they're like, I applied 3 years ago. It's like, well, still looking? You want to work here? Had a lot of success with that. Had another success with Hurricane Katrina. This is kind of crazy. We were watching it the other day on Weather Channel, and I forgot I did this. But when New Orleans was underwater, I got to thinking, there's probably some Java developers there that need work. And I actually hired 2 people from New Orleans who were Java developers. One guy was driving to Nashville when he got the call from me, because I found the resumes on either Indeed or Monster or something. And he said, I'm heading that way now. All I have on me is a pair of jeans and a shirt. I got the interview set up, and he goes, I don't care if he's in jorts. That's jean shorts, by the way. All right, those are funny stories, but if they're non-traditional, maybe you should think of yourself as a disruptor. Who's the most famous disruptor that you can think of? How about Elon Musk? He's Steve Jobs. Oh, excellent book, by the way. If you ever want to read a really good biography, I read that a couple of years ago, and it's just amazing. And the guy that writes those books is a very famous biographer, Eisenstein or something like that. And he also did the same thing for Leonardo da Vinci. And I read that one. And as I was reading about Leonardo da Vinci, I thought, he sounds just like Steve Jobs. They would destroy their work. They were never happy. And his postlude in the book was how similar those 2 guys were. You think of Leonardo, you think he probably has 1,000 paintings. He has like 20. Everything else he destroyed. Steve Jobs must have been very difficult to work with. Anything he didn't like, he crushed it up and threw it away, and he called people names. Not a guy I'd want to work for, but he disrupted the industry. And he had another one too. He acquired one of those film companies. I can't remember which one, and he made that successful too. So be a disruptor. Think about how you can do that.
Sorry. Yeah.
Maybe that's a skill. I don't know if I advertise that. Anyway. All right. Well, since we got all these, Like, okay, let's go to the next slide. Any questions on that? Those are crazy stories, but um, sometimes lightning strikes out of the blue, like these poor guys leaving, their home that was flooded and now live in Nashville.
Yeah, you say luck is the the intersection of planning and preparation when that meets opportunity.
Yeah, I like
It's,
that.
and that you think of, well, that's what kids are doing going to college.
Yeah,
They're planning that they want to be a doctor, a lawyer, or whatever,
sure.
and they're preparing for it. And then once they get through that, that's where that all comes together with whatever opportunity they might come across.
That's exactly right. So you can look at your work, the work you've done in the same way. That work that you've done will prepare you for your next opportunity, just to take what you said and to add to that point. So if you've been successful in work and created skills and did things, now you've taken that background of whether it's a college degree or other preparation to lead to opportunity. I like that. It's going to be in my next presentation. Hope you don't mind.
Sure. I didn't come up with it, so.
That's okay. Work your connections, break down the HR barriers, look for ways around just the resume, okay? Look at LinkedIn. Is there anybody you can LinkedIn with that maybe you're not at a company you're interested in? And see if you can let them know that you'd like to link in. Currently searching for a new position, and let them know that they are one of your top companies to work at because of your reputation, opportunity, and the match with your skills. You never know. I link in with people all the time, even in retirement. Even though it says I'm retired at the top of my page, people still want to link in with me, which is good, I guess. I still get job offers too. It's amazing. I don't want to work, Yeah, I like every day being Saturday. It's a reward. Let's go to the next page, see what we got there. All right. Well, I'm going to open this up too, because I wound up expanding this list. But the first one there I saw is don't take rejection personally, right? I mean, you got to shake it off like my wife helped me. Well, it was a tough commute, and, obviously they didn't see you as a match. I'd rather get rejected from a job than take it and a month later realize that this is a huge mistake. And I can't tell you how many times there's a job I didn't get that I'm glad I didn't get. And 2 examples. One was with Comdata. They started a new division years and years and years ago. How many years ago it was? And I was a finalist. But apparently the VP had somebody else in mind, and he got the job. And that really pretty bummed, because I wanted to work in Brentwood, and Comdata was a nice building. About 9 months later, they decided to close that division. Like, glad I didn't get that job. Another one I finished second on, it was some years later. I think, I don't know what the job was, but I finished second, but the hiring manager told the guy that he hired that he ought to talk to me because I had some really good ideas, but they liked him better, whatever. I took that personally. But anyway, the guy called me and he said, what are some of your ideas? And I thought, well, I was going to hurry. I shared some of my great ideas with him. And a month or 2 later, he called me again and he said, I can believe this, but they're terminating this division. It happens, So I became a resource for him to work with him directly to help him find a new job, because he had relocated from Louisville. I was like, it's pretty bad to relocate and all of a sudden you're out of a job. But I was part of his network in his first call. And I think I helped him. I don't remember. All right, well, we know a couple closing thoughts here. Go through these, and I'm going to go through this list. Now, you never know if it's bad news or good news, do you? I think I just proved that point. 2 specific times that I didn't get the job and wound up going, lucky me. You got to know your motivations too. What really motivates you in this world? And I can't really get more specific about that, but does it making money motivate you? Does having a secure job motivate you? Having a career path? Taking care of your family, paying the rent, and getting groceries can be motivations too. And before I forget, if you know you're going to lose your job, this is another company that I have some horror stories. I got a call, this is before I started my business, to open a staffing firm. I had some staffing experience. They said, we're going to open a staffing firm in Nashville. And we want you to lead that charge. And they had a regional manager in Nashville. So we interviewed and I got the job. So we spent about 6 months buying an office, getting it painted, buying furniture, copiers, everything. And I hired 2 people, a recruiter and an admin. We were putting the office together, setting up the, all the cool stuff. We spent time doing that and just started going. And a regional manager called me and said, you're not going to believe this. He said, they decided to close the branch. I was like, I'm cursed. What do you mean? Was it me? So anyway, they made a deal with me. They said, we're going to give you 90 days to undo everything you did. We're going to pay you for it. And we're going to send the CFO down to work with you. And based on his reaction to how well you work with him, you get a $5,000 bonus. Oh, that sounds pretty good. I'll do that. Not sure it's at the end of that, but what I was thinking about, we had just bought a new house in Brentwood, my wife, and actually an old used house. And we used a lot of our money to get this house. We were a little thin in the savings account. And I came home with 2 kids, a big note, and I decided to make a really bad financial decision, I think by definition. I went to the bank, they had my mortgage at, and I said, I want to get a line of credit for some purchases I want to make. And I had to use my house as collateral. Well, my plan was if I couldn't make the mortgage payment, well, I would take a little loan out. This is a really bad idea. But I didn't have to do that. But I knew that I had at least 90 days to 120 days that I could pull this off, keep my family afloat. It didn't take that long. I was able to land another really good job. But you just got to kind of plan. Now, that same line of credit I had, my wife asked me not to tell this story. When I started my business, it was a lot of contractors that we had, and we had to pay them. So when somebody works for you on contract, sometimes you had to pay them once a week or once every 2 weeks, but you had to pay them. But you hadn't had the organization pay you yet, okay? So I used that line of credit to finance my business for about 2 years until we got funding. Whew. I didn't tell her that until a couple of years later. But it's kind of funny because it worked out well, and we eventually got funding. I'll never forget that phone call. You've been approved. Still got my house. Let's see. Oh, I like number, doesn't have a number. Think of search. New search is an adventure. Yeah, trying new things. And maybe not just job search. Maybe you could try something new in your life. If you've got some free, try walking. Go take a hike. Do something that doesn't cost a lot of money. But do something new and adventurous. Whatever that is. Contacting people to tell them you need help. Reestablishing relationships, whatever. How about a small group for support? Well, we got this, don't we? And it's a good group. And we can all network together. And you could share with each other in these times when you first come in here that you're looking for some healthcare things. Maybe they know somebody, or you're applying in a particular position. Let's make this work in the same way it worked for my job at Vanderbilt. You never know who knows somebody to help you. I think that's it. Is there anything else after that? And I have a few more things. I couldn't stop thinking. This is why I almost was here late today. I started getting rolling probably about 5:30, and I said, no, I need a little bit more here. I hope you could bear with me. Here it is. Build a high quality profile. Yeah, we talked about that. Articulate your skills. Leverage your professional network. I can't stress it enough. Search online job boards. Figure out a way around them. But sometimes you have to apply there directly. Not a big deal. You can work with recruiters. If you see something that fits, maybe you've done the quick search and you didn't get anywhere, it's okay to work with a recruiting firm. A lot of companies don't mind paying the fee if they get top people. Request employee referrals. I mean, you could contact everybody you know, and you could get referrals. My wife actually suggested this one, and it was attend job fairs, and she came up with a few. Because now you have a chance to be face to face with somebody, a recruiter, a hiring manager, whatever. Explore companies' websites. Not all jobs are posted. This is kind of follow up on your application with an email. Find somebody you can send an email to in HR. Consider other cities, relocate, remote. You know, you might find a job in Chicago that allows remote work, right? I worked for Vanderbilt in Chicago for 2 years remotely, taking care of my dad, and they let me work remote. They didn't care. So it was a good thing. I want you also to prepare for online interviews, whatever they're using today. We used different things. I know Microsoft has something, and yeah, Teams is what they used. And I thought Teams gave a better sound quality and a better video than, what was the other one that we used to use? Zoom. Now, here's a couple of recommendations for this. And I had to risk my job many times when I wanted to be the director of executive recruiting for VUMC, which meant that we would do panel interviews with all these highly qualified doctors. Okay, this is when we first started using Zoom. And I had to coach these doctors. You know, you look like a silhouette, that light behind you, you have to fix that. Or can you look at the camera like I'm not doing right now? Just little things to kind of help them. You know, where's the mute button? One of the things I like when I interviewed people on Zoom or Teams was a nice background. Doesn't have to be your nightstand, and you know, it should be like I had for mine was a beautiful view of downtown Nashville. It just looked good, and it looked like, man, I'm here in Nashville. It had the Batman building. It was very iconic. You can find those photos anywhere. Put it as your background. Make sure that you have lighting that's good. You can have notes in front of you, but I could tell when somebody was looking at another screen, reading their interview answers back to me. So you can do that, but don't make it obvious. You can do a practice call with somebody. You can set up Teams on your own, probably. My first practice interview was before Zoom. I don't know what we used, but it was my son, who was pretty good in technology. We set up a practice one. And I didn't have a good background. I didn't know much about that. This was way before this became common. So I decided to sit on the floor in front of a blank wall. I didn't have a chair, just sitting on the floor. The reason that was a mistake is my legs got so tired and I couldn't stand up because it was like being tortured, you know. The blood flow stopped in my lower body. My legs had gone turning blue, but it was the worst mistake ever. So make sure you don't do that. I mean, this is like, can you be dumber than that? I think maybe, but I'm not sure. All right. Make sure that, you know, you consider getting certifications. What if you like business intelligence? What if you want to do something and you see it requires a cert? And you go, well, how do I get that? Well, you might have to go to take some time and get that cert, whatever it is. There's a lot of different jobs that require certifications. And you don't have it, right? Well, you know what you can do is you can write a list of goals too for yourself. I don't know if I have that on this final list. I'm a huge fan of goal setting, and I have been doing this for 45 years. I did go to a junior college and actually got an associate's. But anyway, one of my early instructors in accounting showed us this fabulous movie about goal setting. This is like 1970 something. And he talked about how important it was to set goals, that without direction, anywhere you go is fine. But to be successful in life, you need to write down your goals, hold yourself accountable, and maybe somebody else to hold you accountable. I broke my goals down eventually to several things. Originally it was job first, but somebody coached me and said it was family first. So my family was one of my first goals. Dinner with my kids once a month. Remember, goals have to be measurable. Spiritual goals. I had goals for that. Professional goals. Might have been getting a certification. Fitness goals. I had 6 or 7 areas, and I would do it every year and hold myself accountable. And I credit that with a whole lot of my success in life. And do the same thing. Can you even think about your goals right now and write them down? Is that a challenge? It's a new adventure to do that. And you can't just say get a job. That's not a goal. It's a challenge, but to get your job, much like you said, you have to find working with your experiences and things like that, which will lead to your success. Make the algorithms work for you. Simple resumes are better than columns and pictures of yourself. Don't put a picture of yourself. Update all your social media. There might be some things you want off your social media, you know. If you have to, close an account. Just take it away. We did look at social media. And a lot of times they probably wish they had closed it. By the way, if this advice isn't good enough for you, and I understand, there's some really good internet help. The other day I thought, well, let me see what else is out there for a job search. And I came across a Reddit site that had some really good success stories. Current. That's encouraging. So it talked about what they did and got a job in today's world. So that's pretty good. And that's about all I have. I hope there might be one thing that'll help you. I'm excited for you. I know a lot of you will find new things, maybe something you never dreamt of. I never dreamt of working at Vanderbilt. It was out of the blue. But things will happen in your life if you put the time and effort into it. It's my prayer for you, and I will pray for this group daily, that you have a success story. I don't know if you do success stories anymore. We used to, the old career transition, when you got a job, you get to tell a success story. And we used to kick it off with that because it was kind of motivating. Things have changed a lot, I know, but a lot of things still work today. Any questions before I wrap up?
Anybody online or here, questions?
No, thank you so much. It's very valuable information. Appreciate it.
Great. Thank you, Rick.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you so
appreciate
much.
it. And come back in 2 weeks for your
Yep, 2 weeks.
presentation. It's going to be great. I may come for that because I want to learn more about it. Thank you, guys.
All right.
Hey, I've got
Thank
a quick question. What was
Sure.
was it the Elon Musk biography? Is that one of them you recommended? Who was the
Yeah.
author?
Well, it turns out I think it's Isaacson is the guy's name.
Yeah.
Okay.
And somebody told me the other day, because I know I'm a big fan of his, that he just wrote a book about Musk. This was like yesterday they told me about it. So I can't wait to read it. But if you got some time, read the Steve Jobs one. I found it really interesting, and I've been in IT through that whole thing, so I can relate to a lot of what he did. And I'm a Mac guy through and through, and I think it was because it just all works together. Good question. Other questions?
Daniel has one in the chat.
Yeah. What is it? Can you read it?
Daniel's asking about there's competing advice about whether you do a custom resume for each job or if you just have a standard resume.
I would tailor it to the job. And again, you can engage AI to look at the job description and see if it can help you modify your resume. I read that. In fact, I had a page on that somewhere. I may have skipped through it or fell apart. AI didn't pick it up.
I didn't like it. Yeah.
Didn't like it, yeah. But anyway, my answer would be, if it's a job that really looks good and I know I have all the experience, I would spend the time. This is too important not to just go standard resume. So I would tailor it.
And we can cover that topic too in
Yeah.
2 weeks when we talk about
And
resumes.
if you have you can look at a resume as a living document. Hopefully, you're always updating it,
Yes.
keeping it current. And if you're doing that, the way I try to do it in a job search, especially if you're subject to showing it to somebody like the state or somebody like that,
Mm.
is to get that resume. And then let's say the submission deadline is 5:00 Friday.
Yep.
4:00 on Friday, you take what you've got and transmit it into a PDF that's not changeable.
Mhm.
Submit that document and save that document also in a folder for that job submission. And then if you get an interview, you can go back to the resume that you sent them and you know what you told them at the time you applied for the job.
Yeah. There was something in the Microsoft system that allowed you to do that really well, and I don't remember what it was. So you can attach your resume and whatever. There's ways to organize that, and I suggested a spreadsheet at least at a minimum. But I'm agreeing with what you're saying too, that you should have that resume attached to. There's some app or something in Microsoft that allowed that. What is it?
Would it be OneNote?
What?
OneNote.
It may have been. Yeah, I think that was it. So you can do exactly what you said, and I love that idea. I forgot about that. I'll have to add that too.
Lavalier.
Oh, lavalier?
Didn't you forget your mic one time? Did you have something?
Oh, I did, yeah. It's reminding me to give you the mic back. I guess I could pass it around too.
Do you have time for another question?
I was just gonna say that my method is I create a folder per job. Then I've got a copy of what the job application is, their description. I keep my resume, and then when I entered all my information that I had to apply for, because usually they give me the summary at the end, so I dump that into a Word document. So I have everything that I've done and put a date to it to see if they ever send something else out there as a new job. Then I know that I've got that history sequential. Because I put a date on it, it'll sort those folders again.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And I wouldn't apply to 5 jobs at the same company, Neil, because you can usually see as a recruiter that this guy's applied for 5 jobs. So that was a red flag for me. Yeah.
I just wanted to come back to something you said about cover letters.
Mhm.
You'd mentioned nobody reads cover letters. Is that something that you've noticed in conversation with other people? I've been agonizing over cover letters lately. I've been working really hard on them. And so I'd love to have that time back.
In my research for this, I saw that one of the things said they're worthless. Now, I would read them occasionally. And I think that a cover letter, best case, you can really expand on your experience.
Yeah.
And maybe you can attach the cover letter on the first page of your resume so they can't help but read it.
Well, my gut says if they didn't figure out that I'm a good match from the resume, how am I expecting to sell them with a cover letter?
Yeah.
But I don't know. None,
Yeah.
all of the rules of logic seem to have gone out the window in the past year or two. So,
Well, when in doubt, if you've got a good cover letter,
well,
and you
it's
can
unique for every
just
job. So it's,
I have a great closing line for those, and I can't remember what it was, but it's usually cover letters are attached separately from the resume or other documents.
well, on a job application, there will say upload your resume CV and now upload your cover letter.
Yeah.
And if it asks for one, I feel like, oh gosh,
Yes,
I
absolutely.
better upload one because whoever doesn't upload one is now on the bottom of the pile.
You might also attach some letters of recommendation that you received, or awards. You never know.
Yeah.
It's the worst that can happen.
Right.
Maybe they'll look at it.
Yeah.
Or you can attach those to the back of your resume. They may never get to it though. I mean, that's the biggest problem if you don't have the keywords. But I don't mean to be discouraging, but I like the idea. I'd write it anyway,
Yeah.
and you can modify it for the job. But I think my closing line was, it is my strong belief that I'll be productive immediately in this role and look forward to our conversation. I think it was something like that. But the productive immediately is, that's why they want you. They don't want you to be, take a year to get up to speed. So anyway, good question.
Yeah. Right.
Yes, I'm trying to get this away.
I have a question if you have time for one more.
I do.
Background check. I've
Yeah.
submitted resumes, and then you have to fill out the application when you submit the resume online, and it asks for you to fill out all of your jobs and has this statement that you have to put every job you've ever had. And I mean, I have jobs going back 30 years, some that were part-time, and I don't remember the dates for those. I guess I'm just like, what do you do in that kind of a situation? I just made a guess, but if they run a background check and my guess was wrong, I guess.
Yeah, I only went back 10 years on mine for the most part.
Okay.
Anything else I put there was sort of summary, like, my IBM experience was there, but they usually don't go back more than 10 years in background checks. And
Okay, great.
so typically they're not going to do that. And, some of the companies are out of business. Every background check costs them money. So, but good question. But do get the dates right on your 10 years. And make sure
Okay.
you don't lie about a degree or any of that, because those things have come up. And, if you miss a date by a month, it's not going to dismiss you.
Mhm.
But if you miss it by 5 years, it will.
Well, yeah, like in my early career, I was usually working 2 jobs at the same time. And so, one of them was a full-time job and one was a part-time job.
I'll leave them off.
Okay,
More
great.
than-
Thank you so
more
much.
than 15 years or so, I just wouldn't put it down unless it's relevant to the current role you're applying for.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. This has been really helpful.
Good. Appreciate it.
Hey, Daniel, send me an email. Get my information. We can talk about your questions and we'll also cover them next week. We're out of time for tonight. So,
Yeah.
Rick, thank you so very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott, for your collaboration.
All right. Y'all see you in 2 weeks.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.
What was that? It's a group. What's the men's group called, Scott?
On point.
On point.
It's it only goes for 8 weeks. I'm just getting ready to start up about September 5th. On point.
That's one. Y'all want to get together in the morning? Right there.
6:30.
6:30? It's a good group, very well. Yeah. Very, very good stuff, good input, I appreciate it.